Hi there, my name is Kim from the blog queenofheartsclub.com. I've spent the past year experimenting with ways to lower my blood pressure through habit formation. In 2021, I lowered my blood pressure from an average of about 155 over 100 down to an average of about 125 over 75 without the use of medication. This video is part 2 of a 2-part series in which I tell you exactly how I did that. If you haven't watched the first video, I'll link it below or I'll put it in the cards or both, and you can check that one out. In that first video, I talk about what drove me to this 12-month experiment that I did with my blood pressure. And I tell you a little bit about my methodology that I used when creating the 12 habits. And I also explain the first 6 of those 12 habits in the first video. In this video, I'm telling you about the 6 habits that I implemented in the latter half of the year, and I'm going to give you the results at the end. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I am not a nutritionist. This is just what I did for myself. But please consult your doctor if you're planning on going off your medication or making any major lifestyle changes. Now I know what you're thinking. Adding 2 days a week of workouts when I still can't fully walk is probably not logical. But I also took this as a moment to think about how not everyone's life is going to set them up with everything they need to be successful at lowering their blood pressure. So I needed to fight to push my way forward through this, even with these challenges being presented. So according to the Mayo Clinic, 30 minutes a day of moderate exercise can benefit your mood and your health and give you the ability to live an independent and fulfilling life. Southern Methodist University reports that exercise is a magic drug for mental health disorders, including anxiety and depression. Magic drug. I mean, everyone's looking for the magic pill, right? So what if exercise is the magic pill? So to get my magic pill, I continued to do yoga either in the bed or in the chair, which the DDPY program actually has videos of Diamond Dallas Page doing his yoga moves in a bed or in a chair, because he understands people have injuries, people have things that they need to come back from, and gaining the strength in the other muscles during this time that one is healing is very important. So I was really glad to have that program in my toolbox at that time. Also, it's July at this point. So 3 days a week of yoga in the bed or in a chair, and 2 days a week swimming in the neighborhood pool. And my progress in July was very modest, but it was progress, and that I was very excited about. In the month of August, my baby, my 11-year-old, who was just bit by a dog, got COVID. He was too young to get the vaccine at this point. And we had a family trip planned to Florida because, hot vac summer was going great, And so we decided, we'd go on this family vacation to Florida. And then the numbers started going up again. Hospitals started filling up, and it just seemed like it was a bad idea to take our unvaccinated 11-year-old to Florida. But we live in Texas, so we're kind of right behind Florida in those statistics. And he got COVID anyway. And I'm not going to go into how hard that is. There's so many people who have had it worse than we did. It was a hard moment for us in the month of August. And we needed all of the mental strength that we could summon. And so one of those things that I think helped with our mental stability during the month of August was taking magnesium 3 days a week. I should mention my son is fine. He did have some intense symptoms that I was really worried about, but he did not have any breathing issues. It did not progress past that. So I was very, very thankful. So let's talk about magnesium. Every cell in your body needs magnesium to function correctly. It helps convert food into energy. It helps repair your DNA or your RNA. It helps regulate brain function and mood. And magnesium, for all of these reasons put together, probably helps to lower blood pressure. Also, speaking of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of doctors are recommending that everyone up their dosage of vitamin D during the pandemic. And it's important for you to know that if you don't have enough magnesium in your body cannot use that vitamin D correctly. And I should note that I did see a decline in my blood pressure even during a time when my stress levels were significantly heightened. September felt like the sun coming out after the rain. My son was healthy. He had gotten through COVID. It was his birthday month, so he was eligible for the vaccine now. And he was the last person in our household to get it, so it just felt like a true moment for us. And so we decided to make September all about having fun. And I know what you're thinking. It kind of sounds like I'm taking another break, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. I think that a lot of us have this mentality of we have to make sure we're working hard every day. We have to go in the direction of our goals. We have to make these good decisions. Everything has to be perfect. And sometimes it's okay to let that go. And in fact, that's probably why we have high blood pressure in the first place. And I'm saying we because I'm definitely guilty of that. But here's what we know. According to the European Society of Cardiology, laughter lowers blood pressure. Now, this is not the only study on this. Multiple studies have found that creating joy in your life can help you live longer. Now, I'm not saying to pressure yourself into having fun. Sometimes I considered fun to be just taking 30 minutes for myself and reading a book and not being disturbed by anyone. That's fun. Dancing in the kitchen while you're making dinner. That's fun. But there was also a moment when I hit some garage sales with my mom, which I love. It's one of my favorite things to do. And she's one of my favorite people. So it was really great. And then my husband and I went on a date to a concert with some really good friends of ours. And we had such a good time. There were so many moments of that night that I will always remember. And that's important. It's important to have these great, good moments. This month, incorporating fun helped my systolic pressure go down a little bit, but my diastolic pressure, which is the amount of pressure in the arteries when the heart rests between beats, went up a little bit. So I don't know what that means, but it didn't go up by much. And in total, since the beginning of the year at this point, my diastolic pressure was down by 16 millimeters of mercury. So I was a little taken aback by that lack of progress during the month, but I still considered the entire experiment at this point a win. Out of all of the months in 2021 during this experiment, the month of October is when my diastolic pressure fell the most. My controlled experiment in October was taking probiotics 3 days a week. I don't know if the probiotics had the major effect on that diastolic pressure or if my pressure was just sort of regulating from the increase that I saw the month before. But either way, I was really happy with the results. I also want to tell you that at the beginning of the experiment, my husband had been diagnosed with prediabetes through the VA, and he had results come in again in October of that year. And that October result, after doing these habits with me sort of throughout the year, he lowered his A1C. which was amazing. Now, let's talk about the controversy of probiotics. I think that a lot of people think of probiotics and this idea of gut health as a relatively new scientific breakthrough. And I'm not going to go into the whole history of the study of probiotics, but I will say that it was a Nobel laureate in the early 1900s that first discovered this idea of the microbiome. He was studying the Bulgarian peasant population, which drank this liquid yogurt on a regular basis, and they lived longer than everybody else. So at the time, it was a really big deal. There were other life lengthening things that you could do, but most of them were really expensive, like swallowing gold. So the peasant populations, or really just the general public, didn't have access to this. But yogurt was cheap. So for him to discover that, they could have these life lengthening benefits with the use of this probiotic, it was revolutionary at the time. But then the scientist that discovered this died at the age of 71, and people wrote it off because they're like, obviously, this is not real. Then in the 1960s, there was a Spanish yogurt company that advertises themselves in the US as the Dannon Yogurt Company. They had been using this product in Spain for years, and people thought of it as a dietary remedy for stomach issues. But Americans didn't really get word of this until the 60s. And even then, it was viewed as sort of a diet fad type thing. But in the past decade or so, while this is not a new concept, there has been a lot more research that has gone into the study of probiotics and how it can help your health. In 2014, the American Heart Association reviewed 9 different studies that determined that probiotics could lower your blood pressure. And it worked for me. Flaxseed is another omega-3 fatty acid. But there's several types of omega-3 fatty acids. But this one that flaxseed has is not one that your body can produce on its own. It's one that you have to add to your diet to make sure that you're getting this particular omega-3. Now, flaxseed might seem like a difficult thing to incorporate into your diet, but I add it to granola, I add it to salads, I add it to oatmeal. There's a lot of great different recipes that have flaxseed in them, and you never really notice any difference. The flaxseed doesn't really have a taste to it. So it's really easy to consume. Now, I will say my systolic blood pressure stayed the same this month, as did my heart rate. The only thing that declined this month was my diastolic pressure. But because my diastolic pressure fell, I fell into my next small goal. I fell into the elevated range in the American Heart Association designation of heart disease. So, according to the American Heart Association, I no longer had hypertension. Now I was living with just elevated blood pressure. Now we're at the very last month of the year, and I decided to incorporate potassium. Now, a lot of people might say that potassium should have been higher on the list because it's very important. Potassium enjoys an inverse relationship in your body with sodium. So when sodium levels increase, potassium levels decrease, and vice versa. This relationship is important because both potassium and sodium are electrolytes, and they maintain the balance of fluid in your blood volume. In general, Americans eat too much sodium, which means that their potassium levels are low. When you understand this relationship, it's really easy to see how having the right amount of potassium in your body is very important. However, disclaimer, it's important to talk to your doctor before taking a potassium supplement because people with kidney disease or people taking certain medications, the potassium supplement can sort of affect that situation. So make sure you talk to your doctor. If you want to just add potassium to your diet, you can do that through bananas, citrus fruits, vegetables. At the end of the year, I was still in the elevated stage, according to the American Heart Association, but I had made so much progress. I lowered my systolic blood pressure by 28 millimeters of mercury, and I lowered my diastolic blood pressure by 30 millimeters of mercury. And my heart rate came down by 8 beats per minute. So that's it. That was my journey. That's how I lowered my blood pressure on my own in 2021. It certainly wasn't easy. At times it was harder than others. But I'm really glad I did it. I'm really glad that I took the time and analyzed the data and figured it out. And I will say that the data was so interesting to me and was the reason that I kept going, because I wanted to see how far I could push it. If you made it this far, please click the like button below. It really helps with the algorithm on YouTube, really helps my channel with visibility. Also, if you're interested in seeing more of these videos, if you want to hear about any one particular habit, post about that in the comments below and I will come up with something. Also, you might want to subscribe to the channel if you're interested in hearing more content about this. I'm posting once a week, every Sunday. So thanks for sticking with me through this very long video, and I'll see you next week.